Hi everyone, thank you for being part of this journey that we call the Addicted to Gear show. I hope you've enjoyed all of the guitar and gear reviews that we've presented on this channel, as well as our live Sunday show. For years, I've really enjoyed bringing you this content, and I've really tried hard to steer you all in the right direction with my honest reviews. When something wasn't working right, didn't sound right, or working as it should, I always told you straight up, never tried to hide anything from you, and always tried to be a straight shooter on my channel. So it's with a heavy heart that today I have to say goodbye. Yes, unfortunately, it's time to say goodbye to these garbage tuners that I have on this SG Classic. I can't stand them anymore. Let's do it. Now guys, don't get me wrong, I love this SG Classic, I really do. I feel that it's a fantastic guitar. It really plays extremely well. Everything about it I love, except for these tuners. And I really feel that these tuners are basically the Achilles heel of this guitar, because they don't look very nice, and to be honest, there's better quality tuners out there now than what Gibson put on this guitar originally. So if you guys know me, and I think and hope you guys know me well by now, if there's something that could be improved for not much effort and not much money on my guitars, I will definitely go ahead and do it to make the guitar even better. So I went out and I bought myself a set of these Clon Revolution tuning machines. Now these, because they're made by Clon, they would fit, or they're supposed to fit, directly in the same footprint as the tuners on this guitar. That being said, other brands of Clon tuners may not fit. So there are some minor differences, but they're important differences, so you have to check the guitar that you're installing your tuners on. These tuners are gonna fit this guitar perfectly. There are other types of Clon tuners that are made basically for Gibson Les Paul style guitars, which would not work on this guitar. The main difference is the bushings. These have nuts that fit over the shaft that you can screw in and hold onto the headstock, while the other types of Clon tuners simply have a slide-on bushing that just fits snugly but without any nut, and they're not exactly the same. Now the reason why I went out and I bought these Revolutions is because they are better quality in my opinion. They just feel great. You can tell by the way they're made that they're good quality. And these tuners also have the added advantage of being made of nickel. So I love nickel. I like nickel better than chrome. I feel like it does wear and age, but it ages really nicely. And the ratio on these tuners, if I'm not mistaken, are 18:1, if not better. Now there's no instructions, there's no information inside the box, but I think you could get information on the Clon website directly if you really want to get more details in terms of specs and sizes of the holes, etc., the size of the shaft, just to make sure it fits your guitar. Now this upgrade is relatively easy because there's no electronics involved at all. There's no complicated routing or anything like that. I am keeping my fingers crossed that the holes on this guitar are the right size for these shafts, because I haven't actually pulled off the old tuners yet. So when I actually pull them off, I'll discover whether or not we may have a problem. And if we have a problem, it means that we will have to make the holes bigger in the headstock, which I hope we don't have to do. It's not major surgery or anything like that, but on this type of guitar, I don't necessarily want to mess with it too much. So I'm hoping that these tuners will fit in nicely. If they do, then they should be a rather quick drop-in replacement. Now, to do this type of job, you don't need anything major in terms of tools. All you really need is a little wrench socket just to unscrew the existing tuners off of the guitar. You will have to remove your strings, so I'm going to be putting in a new set of Ernie Ball Super Slinkies. These are 9s to 42s. So I'll put a brand new set of strings on this guitar. And the only other thing you would probably need is a screwdriver. So it actually shouldn't take us very long to do this upgrade. Now, when you're pulling off the strings on your guitar, I often like to do a couple of basic guitar maintenance. I'm just going to say regular maintenance on the guitar, because since you have your strings off, it's a good time to inspect the frets. It's a good time to probably clean and hydrate the fretboard, maybe polish the frets if they need to. Other than that, the new strings are going to be going on right after we install the tuners, and I'm not going to be messing around with the guitar very much after that point. So let's get started. Let's remove the strings off of this guitar and install the new tuners. So these are the tuners that we're going to be installing, and as you can see, they have the same footprint as the old tuners, yet the back of the tuners do look slightly different. They do have a more modern look. I like the tulip style tuners very much, and I think it's going to make a really nice addition to this guitar. So let's start off by taking off the strings, and we can either use our trusty tool to do that and take them off without clipping them, or we can clip them off. I will just clip them off. At this stage, I'm not going to be reusing these strings, but I do like to loosen everything up before I clip them, just so that it doesn't, you know, shock the neck by releasing the tension too suddenly. Now, if you guys have never done this before, as I mentioned earlier, there's a couple of things that could be a gotcha. If the holes on in this headstock is not the same size as the shaft on the tuners, then you may have a slight problem. Hopefully we won't run into that issue, but it could be a problem. Now I'll just cut the strings up here very quickly here. We'll try and do this as quickly as we can. Now, once you cut off the strings, you will have to unravel them off of the tailpiece there. Put them aside so you don't get them in the eye or anything like that. Now, I want to thank you guys for tuning into the channel, and I haven't done a lot of guitar work videos lately. I've been focusing on other types of videos, and I know how much you guys like these videos, so I figured it was about time that we do one. And, you know, I really love this guitar so much, but I really did not get along with these tuners, unfortunately. So today we're going to take care of that and make this guitar even better. Now, I'm using, this is a little, a power built, you know, hex screwdriver here, and it's a 10 millimeter. So this fits perfectly in the shafts. Now, if these work well, they should technically fit on these as well. And I think we're in business. So I'm not going to mix up the hardware, because I'm going to keep, and I recommend you guys keep the hardware that comes with the guitar, because in the event you want to sell this guitar, you may not want to sell it with the upgraded hardware, and somebody that's buying your guitar may want it the way it was originally, so you might want to just keep everything that came with the guitar originally. So I'm just going to start off by loosening all of the nuts. And like I said, the upgrade, hopefully I'm not jinxing it, should be relatively quick. All right, so take all of the nuts off, and we'll flip over the guitar so we can access the screws in the back and take those off. I know some of you do like the old style tuners, and I know a lot of you, I might get some comments saying, you know, sacrilege, these old, you know, old tuners are what Gibson were originally using back in the day, and now you're making your guitar, you know, look different and not be the same as it was, and blah blah blah. Honestly guys, I don't feel like that's gonna be a big issue, because I think the functionality of the new tuners are gonna outshine what was originally on this guitar. Now hopefully you can see what we're working on here clearly enough. So we want to take off the screws here, and make sure you have a screwdriver that is the right size for the small screws. Many times I see these little screws stripped out just because people are trying to work with a big screwdriver when it actually needs a small one like this that I have in my hands here. Don't rush it, and it should go very smoothly. It's actually very relaxing to do these kind of upgrades. All right, so now you can see here everything's clear, and I'm gonna go ahead and put in one of these tuners here just to see how well it fits perfectly. I mean, even the holes are in the right place. Yeah, I think they all go with the flat side facing up, and then you can see the name of the logo there. So I'm gonna just take the screws out of the bag. You do want to use the hardware that comes with the tuners. You don't want to mix up the old and the new, just because there might be a slight discrepancy in terms of size and whatnot. So always use the hardware that came with the components that you're replacing. And since everything is the same size, I don't have to re-drill the hole or make the hole any bigger. I'm just gonna hand tighten this for now, just to make sure everything is lining up and I'm not putting any kind of undue pressure on the existing holes. I don't want the screws to go in crooked either. So having it loose at first so you can adjust is always best. Put in both screws. Now, some of you out there that have been working on guitars for a long time might feel that this is trivial, this type of, you know, what I'm showing you here today. But a lot of people, believe it or not, are not comfortable working on their guitars and feel like they can't do it. And this is the reason why I like doing these videos, because I like showing you guys that it's really not that difficult. Once you know you've done a couple of small jobs on your guitars, it's pretty straightforward. So I'm going to go ahead, take all of these out instead of doing them one at a time. It'll give me more space to work. And I like to do one thing at a time. So I'll install all of the tuners first, put in the small screws on the back first, and then I'll go ahead and put in the bushing, you know, the actual shaft that will tighten the tuners onto the headstock in the front. Okay, that way, you know, you don't have to flip your guitar over and over again. And I'm happy to report that the holes are drilled very nicely. Some other guitars that I've seen in the past, sometimes people work on their guitars and they try and make the holes bigger and they don't have the right tools and it looks terrible. It looks like the holes were made with a bullet sometimes. You know, here we don't have any of that. The holes are straight as they were out of the factory. Very nice and neat. We're not getting any kind of chipping on the lacquer or anything like that, which is also really good. You want to try and minimize any kind of damage that you might do to the guitar. So if we go ahead and put these in like so, they should all work really well. Now, Clon has been making guitar hardware for a long time, for many years, and they make good quality stuff. I have to say, however, you have to be careful today. If you're buying anything off of eBay, off of any sites that are perhaps not well-known, reputable sites, there are a lot of fake tuners actually floating around out there. People say that they're, Clons, or they even may look like Clons, but they don't work and they don't feel like them. So you want to be careful that you are buying your hardware from a distributor, authorized distributor, supplier, and not just somebody that is trying to sell you a knockoff. I've seen many of those floating around. And let me tell you, they are a far cry from the quality you get with the originals. Now, these tuners are about $100, and they're actually still quite a bargain, I would say. There are some other models that are even more expensive from Clon, but these are going to be just fine. They're not locking, and honestly, I'm not a big fan of the locking tuners very much. I just find it's, people automatically assume because you have locking tuners that your tuning stability will be better. It's actually not the case. The only thing that locking tuners give you as a plus is that you don't have to wrap the strings around the shaft so many times when you change your strings. However, that being said, it might be time saving, but for me, I find that when you use locking tuners, since you have to lock down the string, you often, what will happen is, if you're not careful on how you set up your strings, the strings will actually, the outer core of the strings will actually start to unravel. And because basically a string is made up of a center core and then a smaller strand of string that's wrapped around the center core. And I find through experience, sometimes that outer core strand will start to slip because the peg is basically, snug up against the outer core of your string. And what ends up happening is that your strings end up sounding like rubber bands over time just because of that slippage. So I prefer, to go with standard tuners when I can, and just wrap the strings around like I normally would always do. And by doing it that way, I find that the strings don't have that rubber band effect as quickly. And I actually like having extra wraps of string around the post, because I feel like if ever I need to do any work on the guitar, I could still very carefully unwrap the strings, do what I need to do, and put the strings back if I'm feeling cheap, and I don't want to spend extra money on a new set of strings. I can do that. With the locking tuners, you can do that as well. But like I said, by doing that a couple of times, then the outer core starts to slip. And I noticed that you start getting a dull sound in your strings because of that. Now, some of you might also say, the added weight on these tuners might give you more sustain as well. That could be true. I don't know. I would have to see. But I know one thing is that some people also will say, well, the added weight on the headstock now will give you more neck dive. I never felt that was a big issue with SG guitars. If you have any kind of neck dive, all you need to do is use a thicker strap, and thicker straps will wrap more tightly around the strap peg, and you won't have any neck dive. So you don't have to necessarily worry about that too much. All right, so here comes the moment of truth, guys. Now we're gonna look at putting on all of the bushings and all of the nuts and stuff here. So I'm going to try and give you a better view of that. The bushings that I'm referring to are these. These are bushings that go right over the shaft, but before we put those in, you have to put in these little washers. When you put in these washers, there is a right and wrong side to them. The side that's right is the one that has a little bit of a chamfer or a little round over. The wrong side is the side that's completely flat. So you want to make sure you look at those carefully and put them right side up. Otherwise, sometimes it's very hard to tell with my failing eyes. But if you take a good look, you will see the difference. There we go. I think this one is a little tricky. Yeah, I think it's this side here. Take your time. So I like to finger tighten everything first. And this is just how easy it is, guys. I mean, after I tighten these in, we basically have a brand new set of tuners on this guitar. Now, if the shaft, for whatever reason, is sticking or not going in smoothly, just make sure you don't cross thread them. This is why I like to do them hand tighten first, so you can feel how it's going in. Because if they cross thread on the shaft, you could damage something. So that you shouldn't feel any resistance. And then the rest of it you can do with a 10mm driver. And you don't want to over tighten things because you don't want to crack the lacquer. You don't want to, you know, cause divots inside the face of the headstock. You can do it finger tight is just fine as long as you don't have any rattling or anything, then that's fine. And there you go. We have a brand new set of tuners on this guitar. I think it's an easy, well, worthwhile upgrade. It didn't take more than maybe 10 or 15 minutes, not even. I don't know how long I've been talking, but basically it's done. All I need to do now is reinstall the strings on the guitar, tune up the guitar, and we're in business. I'm gonna take a minute to hydrate the fret here, the fretboard, take a look at the frets just to make sure they're nice, and put on a new set of strings. And that's basically all there is to making an SG Classic even better with these great Clon Revolution tuners. Well, this upgrade was definitely gratifying for me to do. I now can rest easy knowing that this guitar will perform to its full potential with these great Clon tuners that are now installed. I think, or at least I hope, you'll agree that they do look better than what was on the guitar originally. I think they work extremely well, and I do stand corrected because I did mention that they were 18:1 ratio, but in actual fact, after checking the information on the website, they're actually 19:1. So they're way, way better, more accurate, more comfortable, and more sensitive than the old ones were. So if any of you have these old, you know, SG Classics, don't be afraid to upgrade the tuners if they're not cutting it for you. If you're happy with them, fine, let them be. But if you're not happy with them, it's a very easy upgrade to do. It's gonna make this guitar play wonderfully for the rest of its days, hopefully. So that's it for today, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this little workbench video that we had the pleasure of sharing with you today. I hope I didn't stress anybody too much at the beginning of the video. We do intend to be around a lot longer on this channel. So if you like what we're doing here, then please subscribe because there will be a lot more videos coming your way. I'm Tony. This is Addicted to Gear. Stay tuned for more.